I'm Sherilyn Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for working women who are ready to shine. Each week, I bring you ideas, inspiration, and insight on balance, business, and getting it all done gracefully. You ready? Let's be brilliant. This is episode 223 of the Brilliant Balance podcast, the three-legged stool of mental well-being. So I know that this is a hot topic still in 2022, and with everything that we've all lived through in the last 2 years, maybe it's never been a hotter topic. But mental health and mental well-being have been so central to the story that a lot of us are living over the last couple of years. And I was talking with a group of clients in one of our coaching calls a couple of weeks ago, and a woman who I've been coaching for quite a while and know pretty well was asking, why do I feel so off my game? And this is someone who is doing so many things so well, but was feeling like in this particular chapter, like the month that we were talking, she wasn't getting a lot done. She wasn't feeling very good. She kind of felt like she was moving more slowly through the tasks of the day. She was having trouble making decisions, and she was kind of down on herself and wondering, was there any insight about why? And I shared with her this three-legged stool idea that I've used off and on with people over the years, and she found it helpful. So I'm going to share it with you here today on the show. So why three-legged stool, right? What is the idea behind the metaphor? The idea is that there seem to be three big areas, three big things that work in tandem to support a positive state of mental well-being. And if any one of those is off balance, it's as if the whole stool sort of tips off balance. So if any one is out of whack, you're going to notice it, right? And if any one of these areas is strained, maybe think of it as like a wobbly leg on the stool, then another one of the three may need to be fortified or strengthened to really keep the stool, in this case, you, upright. Okay, so the metaphor you're going to see, I'm going to unpack what are these three legs of the stool. And I want you to think about in your own life how these work together to support your overall sense of well-being. Okay, so the first leg of the stool is your environment. This is the one that has you thinking about what is going on in your life. Is there anything out of the ordinary? Anything that is particularly stressful or unusual that's happening in your world. And if there is, then you have your first clue that one of the legs of the stool may be a little wobbly. Okay, this could be something like you're in a particularly stressful time at work. Right? Think about accountants during tax season. Like that's a classic example. If you were a healthcare worker throughout this pandemic, that is definitely a place where the environment at work, maybe you're in a company that's preparing for an IPO. Maybe you were in a small business that was experiencing financial pressure. Any of those things. And in each of these, there will be sort of varying degrees to which the environment can be off kilter. But think about work events or the environment at work as one sort of likely culprit. Maybe there is something stressful happening in your family. You have a parent who's ill, or, somebody is in a relationship struggle, like your marriage is in a struggle. Anything that involves change, like you've moved to a new city or you have an impending move, to a new city, and all the things that come with that. Or you could have a child who's struggling in school or struggling in some aspect of their life that's requiring extra attention. Or candidly, the pandemic, everything we've been through you could just capital P pandemic, right? For 2 years would count as something happening in the environment around you that is particularly stressful, particularly unusual. And most of the time when I'm thinking about this three-legged stool model, I'm not thinking about things that are a blip, right? So for example, school calls and your child is throwing up and you need to come get them. That can throw your day off, but it's probably not going to throw off your overall sense of well-being. We're looking here for things that are a little more sustained, a little more chronic in nature in your environment that you have been grappling with for some period of time. And the fact that you're dealing with it over time, or that you know you'll be dealing with it over time, is ratcheting up the stress level that you feel from that situation. Okay. Also, maybe there's a correlation here between intensity and duration. So it doesn't have to last as long if it's really intense to have the impact, or if there's a level of shock or surprise associated with it, like unexpected job loss would count in this environmental arena that didn't necessarily have a long duration, but there may have been a substantial element of shock or surprise. And I think that can really cause that leg of the stool to wobble as well. So it's kind of the first leg that I always look for when someone's telling me, I really don't feel like I'm on my A game, like things are I just don't feel right, is what's happening in your environment. Because if nothing else has changed, that can be enough to really knock you off balance. So as you examine that, if you sort of are coming up empty, things are relatively stable, or even though, there's something going on in my environment, it doesn't appear to be significant or substantial, then the second leg of the stool that you want to take a look at are your behaviors. Collectively, your personal behaviors. What are you doing or not doing, right? Are you doing less of things that typically help you, or maybe doing more of things that don't help you? Has your behavior somehow shifted? So examples of behavior would be things like, are you getting enough sleep? I mean, I am a broken record on this one. I realize if you've heard the podcast for any length of time, you've heard me talk about sleep. But are you getting enough sleep? Is it high quality sleep? Are you able to sleep sort of through the night comfortably? What is your food intake like? Have you changed anything about your typical behaviors around food? As I record this, we're sort of coming out of the holidays. It's a time where there's a lot of overindulgence. A shift in your eating habits can certainly have an impact on how you feel overall. And so is there something there that you need to clean up or readjust? What does movement look like? Are you getting exercise? And I think of this, exercise outdoors is probably the gold standard. Are you getting exercise at all? And how much of that is outdoors, where you're really getting that fresh air and or sunshine? Are you getting sunlight? Especially at this time of year, are you getting outside? Seasonal affective disorder is something a lot of us have heard about. Some of you have probably self-diagnosed. Some of you have been officially diagnosed, but that absence of sunlight during the winter months can really take a toll. So behaviorally, are you getting yourself exposed to sunlight? Are you outside during daylight hours, really letting that do its thing? Do you ever find yourself saying, I just need a minute to breathe? While the whole idea of meditation can sound totally intimidating, I've found that stepping away from the chaos of life, even just for a few minutes, is incredibly restorative. So if you're short on time, but could use a few moments of peace right about now, listen to my 5-minute meditation for working moms. It'll help you clear your head and come back to your day feeling centered and refreshed. Head over to brilliant-balance.com/breathe. Press play and settle in for a few mini moments of peace right now. Are you engaged in meditation? Do you have a meditation practice or a quiet practice? It could be journaling. It could be prayer time. It can be silent meditation, guided meditation. But are you quieting your mind in a way that creates an alleviation of stress? Behaviors like playtime. Are you doing things that you love? Are you engaged in hobbies or activities that put you in that state of flow that's so tantalizing? So behaviorally, this is the second leg of the stool. And I want you to be asking yourself, what are you doing? Because this is the part that really is fully in your control. Okay. So those good behaviors that you know are so nourishing to your overall being, you want to ask yourself, am I doing them at the level that I typically do? Have I sort of fallen off the wagon a little bit? And do I need to get back on track? And then again, paying attention to any behaviors like drinking, overeating, or other bad habits that might actually be making you feel worse. Right? There are habits that we have that can make us feel worse. Even scrolling social media, especially if it is a collection of sites or things that have made their way into our newsfeed that cause us stress or anxiety or make us feel like we're losing the comparison game. So behavior is the second leg of the stool. And when your environment is particularly stressful, you may need to pay extra attention to these behaviors, right? There's a relationship between the two that's important as well. And if you're kind of coming up empty there in those two areas of investigation, and nothing there seems to be explaining why you're feeling the way you're feeling, then the third area that you can look into is what's going on with your biochemistry. Right? So if everything else seems to be under control and you still aren't feeling well, you can dig a little deeper into your biochemistry. And I'll tell you, the answers here aren't always obvious, right? This is something that may require some outside help. You may need to talk to your doctor or other healthcare professionals. You might need some testing to really understand what's going on inside your body and your brain. And this is where things like hormones, brain chemistry imbalances, inflammation, your gut biome, any of these things can be affecting how you feel. Now, if you know what's going on, then you can make adjustments. So you can get back a little bit of a sense of control here through medication, supplements, diet changes, et cetera. But this is really where doctors and healthcare professionals come into play. And I think a lot of people can avoid this area and overly rely on behaviors, thinking I can do everything there. But if something is out of sync, sort of medically or biochemically, you may be fighting an uphill battle. Everything will essentially feel harder, okay? So in some cases, you may be listening saying, well, I already know I'm paying attention to that, right? I'm in touch with my doctor and I am really doing the work to make sure that things are functioning optimally around hormones, brain chemistry, inflammation, et cetera. So that chemistry piece is an assess and treat pathway, right? You want to get some help with the assessment and you want to treat it in a way that is comfortable for you and is aligned with the medical advice that you're getting. But you don't want to ignore that piece, okay? Where you have even more control is behaviors. So I would draw a circle of control right around that one and say, the one thing I know I can control is the collection of behaviors that I engage in and day out. So what I would encourage you to do here is leverage the principle, I call it equal and opposite. Okay. If you have a really big challenge in your environment, if things have been extra stressful, then you need equal and opposite behaviors to sort of offset the effects of that environmental factor. Right? So if things are really stressful at work or they're really stressful at home, then you're going to need to double down on those behaviors and take extra good care of yourself to offset that. Okay? And in terms of your environment, the key here is bringing it into your conscious awareness. Because I can't tell you how often I have seen people have something really substantial happening in their personal environment and just ignore it. They're like oblivious. They haven't even acknowledged that it's happening and that it is in fact weighing on them. So bringing it into your conscious awareness so that you can honor it is the first piece of the game around environment. And the second thing to remember there is the law of impermanence. So I shared this when I was talking about my top lessons of 2021. Impermanence, classic Buddhist principle, but it shows up in a lot of other kind of ancient wisdom as well, is that nothing lasts forever. So the environmental situations that you might find yourself in are almost always temporary. And if the overall situation is permanent, the way that you relate to it will change and morph over time. So the law of impermanence says everything is changing all the time. And there's great freedom in that when we're facing something in our environment that's particularly stressful. So let's recap that the whole point of this episode is if you're not feeling great, if you feel like you're just off your game, there are three areas of this, or three legs of this stool to sort of investigate. The first is what's going on in your environment, what is happening around you that is having an impact on you. The second is where are your behaviors? Are you doing the things that make you feel good? Are you avoiding the things that make you feel not so good? Do you need any kind of a tune-up there? And then the third area to look at, that third leg of the stool, is your biochemistry. Is there anything out of balance biochemically in your body or your brain that you can get some assistance with that can help bring things back into balance? Any of those legs of the stool could hold the key to you getting back on your A game. And there is a relationship between them. If one of them is strained, the others have to work harder to help keep you upright. So you have to think about controlling what you can control. And most often, that is going to come in the realm of behaviors, okay? So that's the model of the three-legged stool that really is there to support your mental well-being. I hope you got something insightful out of today's episode, something that you can use today to get you on the path to feeling better. And if you did learn something today that was valuable and you like the show overall, take a second and rate the show or leave a short review. You can do that on any of the podcast services. It takes just a minute or two, and it really does help other people find the show and get some value from it. So that's all for today, my friends. Till next time, let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.